to Redesigning Health and Home. I'm Carrie and I'm here with my co-host Meg, and today we're excited to share with you an interview that Meg held with Whitney English. Whitney recently wrote and released her brand new book called Organize First, Decorate Second. Meg, can you share a little bit with us about your interview with Whitney?
Would love to, Carrie. I was absolutely tickled and honored to speak with Whitney about her book and a little bit about her design philosophy. So she just has so many gems and drops of gold in the book. I do hope everybody runs out and buys their copy, or they can get the Audible version, which I also got, and it was delightful to have her in my ear. So I hope everybody does enjoy this interview.
And without further ado, let's go ahead and listen to that interview between Meg and Whitney English.
Hello, and welcome back to Redesigning Health and Home. I'm Meg, one of your hosts, and I'm so thrilled to be joined today by the incredibly talented Whitney English. Whitney is a creative entrepreneur, the visionary behind the iconic Day Designer Planner, the author of A More Beautiful Life, with her newest book, Organize First, Decorate Second, now available. From planners that have transformed how we organize our days to her insightful writing on living intentionally, Whitney has inspired countless people to create balance and beauty in their lives. Whitney, thank you so much for being here. To get started, could you take a moment to share a little bit more about yourself?
Hi, Meg. Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here with you. Most importantly, I'm a mom to 3 kids, ages 15, 14, and 12 currently. We live in Oklahoma. We have 2 rabbits. I'm trying to decide what the next book should be about or if I should write one.
You definitely should.
Okay. Thank you. I will take that. And I spent all day yesterday gardening and all day today working on files. And this is a welcome break. It's delightful to be talking to you.
Well, wonderful. That's incredible. Well, Whitney, before we dive into talking about your new book, which is so exciting, your career as a creative entrepreneur is inspiring. Can you take us back to your early days? How did you find your passion?
Well, you should ask, Meg. It all began on a dark and stormy night. No, I'm joking. It happened after 9/11 because I had just graduated from college and had moved to Dallas. I had a degree in interior design. That was my passion. It still is my passion. But when 9/11 hit, that pulled the rug out from underneath me. So I moved back to Oklahoma, moved in with my parents, started a stationery company, wholesale stationery company, just started doing invitations for friends and family. And one thing led to another. And we ended up going wholesale and we were in 3,000 stores nationally. And that was wonderful until we got hit by this technology from one side. Shutterfly came in, and then the printables from Etsy came in from the other side, and then it wasn't wonderful anymore. And we filed bankruptcy. And then I had this idea for a planner. And so we launched the planner, and we were making them by hand here in the United States. And because we were making them by hand, they were selling as fast as we could make them. And so they developed this crazy little cult following. And then somebody called from Target and said, "Do you want to have your products in Target?" And then out of all of that, I sold that planner company, which was a redemptive story, and then started writing books. And here I am. I think I'm trying to figure out when the third ship is going to come in.
Well, hey, that is a redemption story from bankruptcy to selling a business. Pretty incredible. Well, in your new book, Organize First, Decorate Second, it's generating a lot of excitement. I have my paperback.
Yay.
I adore the cover. Is that part of your textiles?
It is. It is.
I
Yes.
love that.
You're the first person to ask about that, so I can tell you the story behind it. HarperCollins, when you're working with a publisher, they have people who design the covers, who know like what shoppers are going to be looking for and things like that. And so I just sent them a link to my Spoonflower shop, which is where I sell my textiles. They have been a great, amazing partner. That's been a fun way to explore my passion, I guess. Here I am after all this other stuff has happened in my life. And it's really fun to have interior designers contact me and say, I'm looking for this fabric, but I need it in this color, or I want to tweak this, or can we customize, or something like that. That's what I've been doing all day today. So I'm really enjoying that. So the book cover designer went through all my patterns and picked that one out. Yeah.
Oh, it's really adorable. I love it so much.
Thanks.
And a side note, I will tell you. So I got the paperback, start reading it, and then I said, oh, I wonder if this is on Audible. So I search Audible, and there it is. And you're the narrator.
Yes.
So you were holding my hand the whole time. I was going through my house, truly inspired, starting from that very step of decluttering. And you were just so kind and warm. I hope everybody gets this book in Audible
Aw.
form and book form. I am being serious. I just
Aw.
listened to it and I felt this warm blanket of friendship around me.
Good.
And yeah, your cute little quotes sprinkled throughout. Just, I loved it so much. But okay, let's get into the book a little bit.
Okay.
What inspired you for this specific book, the approach of creating a beautiful, functional home?
I mean, back to your initial question, like, how did I find my passion? It's always been home. Even, I mean, since I was very, very, very young, I was drawing floor plans in elementary school and high school when I was supposed to be doing math homework. I do enjoy designing the patterns. That's something I've been doing for a very long time. But when I trace those threads, I guess I'm at this point in life where I kind of look back at what I've done and I try to find the threads that are the same. And, you pull on those and you just, am I doing what I'm supposed to be doing? Am I using my gifts? Am I where I'm supposed to be? Kind of, which were crazy questions. I didn't think grownups ask themselves questions like that.
Yeah.
So to be at that point in life where I'm starting to kind of contemplate those things, it's very interesting. But writing and drawing were two things that I always, always, always did. So about drawing at home, like floor plans and pictures and patterns and then just writing. And so I think when my editors said, what do you want to write about? I said, I want to write a book about home. And they said, well, we're always looking for the next organizing book. And I said, well, that's not the book you want me to write. I'm not naturally organized. And they insisted that, yes, it was the book they wanted me to write and that I could write it even though I'm not naturally organized.
Well, that was a big piece that gave me comfort through it because I don't feel I am. But when you said it's okay, you don't have to be perfect. One quote was, people say to myself, I'm not organized, but you said, just take a breath and do one thing you can do right now. And that, I thought, okay, let's go do something. And I just felt you just taking my hand through my house. A big theme was editing. Editing and the edit. Can you share a little bit of that perspective of editing?
I guess I just wanted to pick a different word. Like, as somebody who is creative, and I had this story that I could tell about my mom visiting me when I lived in Dallas and how she left these little tent cards all over my apartment that said edit in her very perfect large capital handwriting letters. And because it really is about editing. I also worked with an interior designer at one point in time. I was busy with business stuff and didn't have time to focus on house stuff and needed some house help. And so I hired somebody and she was putting together a Pinterest board. And she said, it's just all about editing. At night when you're laying in bed, hop on your phone and just edit, like add things to the board, take things away from the board, add things to the board, take things away from the board. And I was like, okay. And I mean, in America, in the United States, we're just so good at accumulating things. I mean, we really, really, really are. You only have to scroll for 2 seconds on social media before someone's telling you you need something else again, and you're slightly convinced that you might. We have to give ourselves constraints. I don't necessarily talk about that in the book, but that's something that I have been realizing creatively as well. I could keep writing. I could keep working on the book forever. I could keep painting a picture forever, or working on at some point in time, you have to make a decision and say, this is done. And it's good enough to press publish or host a party or hang on the wall. And so I enjoy the messy middle. I enjoy the process. I think if anything, it surprises some people who don't know me in person. I had a friend over for the first time the other day who's also an author. We're just kind of getting to know each other. We had tea on my back porch, which sounds charming and delightful, but there were leaves and I was coughing because I had gotten the air blower out 5 minutes before she showed up. And then the dog jumped up there and left a lovely little surprise for us. So I had to pick that up and run. I mean, it wasn't perfect. You know what I'm saying? And it's not going to be perfect. And I guess I hope that people see in me that I can love nice things. I can aspire to beauty, but I can live in the tension. And hopefully I'm encouraging other people to do the same, to just realize we don't have to be embarrassed about this stuff. We just have to say, this is life. You're human. I'm human. We're all human. Yay.
Yes. That's pure gold, because it's so true. I mean, the continuous editing, I am truly inspired. And I am not just saying that because I am here with you. I listened to your book and I just was moved. I have a little comment in my notes that you probably thought you were writing an organizing book, but it was a little bit of a romantic book too, because I had all the feels. So thank you. Book, you talk about your philosophy of places like Seaside, Florida, or New Urbanism. Can you share a little bit about that and how it inspired you and your family?
Well, there were a few things that happened over the past 10 years that led me to look at this idea of beauty differently. I think it started from this place of my inner child revolting. The soundtrack playing in my head is, I don't have to put away my shoes if I don't want to put away my shoes. And so very often my shoes just get left out. So, I mean, thank you, therapy, for helping me identify the voices that are, playing in my head, and really those just aren't even conscious thoughts. Those are just things that at some point in time, we just all start to become programmed. And having grown up in a very meticulous house, that inner rebellious teenager was just kind of too okay with leaving things a mess. We ended up, for a host of different reasons, moving to this new urbanist community, and we got to hear this man speak. His name is Andreas Duwani. It was a very intimate setting. He is a big name in the new urbanism movement. And so it was such a treat to get to talk to him very personally, and he's a very personable guy. He laid a picture of Rome over Manhattan and explained on the slide that he was presenting, and explained that people are going to walk 11 times further in Rome than they will in Manhattan. I've never been to Rome. I have been to Manhattan. Walking in Manhattan, it's a lot. I mean, you do have to walk a lot, but you kind of want to get to where you want to go and then quit walking. But then I've talked to people who've come back from Rome and they're like, I walked 35,000 steps a day or something. And Andreas Duwani explained that the reason for that is because it was safe, it was useful, you were going someplace, you had a destination in mind, and it was beautiful. And all of those three things kind of tie together in the principles of new urbanism, this idea that if things are beautiful, then they're well maintained. If they're well maintained, they're safer. Attention is given to them. So you have more, the term in new urbanism is called eyes on the street, which means it's safer for kids to play outside. So I mean, no place is there's no such thing as utopia, but it is interesting from a design perspective to get really analytical about the components. It was fascinating to live in a new urbanist community and see how these principles applied to a neighborhood, and then to say, okay, we're going to still apply those to life. And I think I'm still unpacking different ways that changed how we do community, which I talked a little bit about in the book too. Tried to talk about hospitality. You're kind of watching everybody else's life play out. You sort of have to become okay with not airing your dirty laundry, so to speak, but just realizing that at some point in time, somebody's going to drive by and they're going to see it in the window.
Well, speaking of seeing it in the window, you were saying that the family room windows are in the front and the
Yep.
garages are in the back. That whole just everybody's in their front and the developers that kind of changed because of the car industry. That was really interesting. I really gravitated to that. I'm going to pick on a couple more pieces of your book. So you talk about decision fatigue. Now, I have heard this, but it was so good to hear that it's an actual thing and you recognize it. And what are your strategies to just kind of take a break? You just take a break, or what do you specifically do for decision fatigue when you're editing?
I don't think I mentioned this in the book, but I'm just going to pull from life and give an example. It helps to change your state. I struggle with ADHD. I talked about that in the book a little bit too. I didn't realize that that was actually going to hit with so many people. I mean, it really has. I don't have all the answers. I mean, it's not a book about ADHD. It's a book about organizing, and that's just one of the struggles that I faced. So I haven't done a ton of research on that, but I do know how I've hacked my own way through it. And so the idea of changing your state is something that I picked up at a Tony Robbins conference of all places. It really just is all about putting one foot in front of the other, like just taking that first step, looking around your house and being like, something has got to go. Just pick one thing, or if you are sitting on your sofa and you need to get up and go do the laundry, just put one foot on the floor. It just is about actually physically turning the overthinking off and like taking action to move into the next thing. Even just hopping on this podcast, I was staring at a screen all day and I'm thinking like, oh, I have to talk for 30 minutes. But I forget that engaging with other people, that human connection is something that I need as well. And if I'm just staring at a screen, or if you're just making decisions, decluttering all day, you haven't filled your brain and your cup and your heart with all the other things that you need as a human.
Yeah.
And sometimes if we just change our state, we start to realize that we're filling that cup with other things.
That is gold. I love that connection. Well, that was a big theme too about how spaces make us feel and not just the perfect looking space. One of the romantic ideas I thought, I got really emotional when you were talking about the kids' rooms, that you want them to feel safe and a comfortable place to land and to express who they are. I really thought that was so lovely.
Definitely. That is what is most important, bottom line. And that's why I wanted to write a book about not just organizing, but also decorating. Because when we start to surround ourselves with stories, whether that's family photographs from a vacation or pictures of kids on walls, paintings, things that we have collected from family members, whether they're sentimental things, or, I mean, it can even just be the fact that like your sofa is the same color as Aunt Matilda's was. Like, it doesn't have to be Aunt Matilda's sofa. You can weave things in as you continue to make choices, but it really just is all about when we assign meaning to things, and I also talk about how you go from a routine to almost a ritual by just assigning meaning to it. Because I did planners, I think people always sort of expect me to talk about organizing my day, and that is sort of where the struggle begins. There were some planning and organization tips thrown in there too, day organization tips. But just that idea that when we start to assign meaning to things, that's when they become sacred, or, I mean, to use your word, romantic almost. And I think that that's a sign to us as humans. You said, I had all the feels when I read this. And I thought, okay, that's good. Like, emotion is good. Sparking emotion is good. Hearing as a writer that's what happened when you read the book. It is a self-help book. Checking all the boxes. Emotion, I think, is a sign that we're experiencing beauty, not just seeing it, but actually allowing ourselves to be moved and touched by it. And I just think so very often in our culture, like, we just run right over feelings, just steamroll right over them. Like, that just doesn't, like, what you feel doesn't matter. No, what you feel really does matter. And if we can approach those feelings and our emotions using them as signposts, if we give ourselves permission to experience them, man, a house is a really fun place to experience those feelings and emotions.
1,000%. I mean, I really felt it. And I want to create that more in my own home. So you inspired me to want to do that. But before I get into your personal style, one last thing about the organization piece. You talked about your systems, and this helped me too, because I thought we are human. It's not just A, B, C, or D. You said for your drop zones or your routines, just let it happen for a week and then create the system out of that. You were saying your son always put his water bottle by the fridge. So, hey, why don't we put that area by the fridge and then the drop zones? Just figure out how your daily life works with your family and then create the systems. That made so much sense to me.
Love it. Perfect. I'm so glad. I mean, you put those things in a book. There's so many times, especially when writing a self-help book, you feel like this is common sense, right? And then your editor's over there going, no, this is great. And you're like, you're just telling me that because you're my editor. And, no, thank you. Like hearing that those things help people is so encouraging because that's what the book is full of.
It sure is. And I truly hope everyone runs and gets it. For style, I'd love to hear about your personal style, your values, and your personal style statement.
My personal style statement. I don't have a personal style statement. Patina is my favorite color. I am famous for shopping at the scratch and dent part of the appliance store, buying things secondhand off Facebook Marketplace. And somebody will be like, well, there's a tiny scratch on the surface. Great, because at least my kids didn't put it there, you know? I mean, China gets chipped. I do have an antique booth where I resell things sometimes. And if I am buying a set of China at an estate sale, I know that the chipped pieces aren't going to sell. So they actually become saucers underneath my houseplants. Little blue and white saucers are so cute. Yes. So everything kind of gets reused, especially if it's pretty. Like, why are we going to throw out a cute little saucer just because it has a chip in it and then go buy a plastic tray from the garden center that can collect the stuff in the pot? So I love to repurpose, reuse things. I'm very resourceful. Nothing can be too precious. That's another. I love nice things, but I've had to learn, even as an entrepreneur, like through it's like feast or famine. We can't take these things with us. And I have learned to hold them very loosely. Nothing can be more precious than the people who enter the doors of our home. And one of my friends read the book and she owns a bookstore. And so she said they're carrying the book, of course. And she sent a newsletter out to their email list and said, when Whitney says nothing can be too precious, she means nothing can be too precious. I have spilled a glass of wine at her house and she has tossed me a dish towel and said, don't worry about it. Also, the ladies at the Altar Guild at my church, I didn't put this in the book, but the thing that gets red wine out of linens is white wine.
Red wine, white wine. Love it. Thanks for the tip. Okay. That's sweet. And then how can we as readers make our own home reflect our own personal style? Do you have any tips? I know you talk about your values, and is that where you would start with that?
I think it definitely helps. It's so funny. Writing a book, you have 55,000 words, and it turns out that that's actually not enough to say everything that you could say about something. I walked myself through an exercise on identifying my values. And values are this very esoteric thing. You know, what are they? Is it a feeling? Is it a character quality? What is it? And the answer is just yes. I was trying to figure out like what they were, like they were permanent fixtures in my life and I had to uncover them. And really it just came down to like, what am I going to focus on? So in the book, we provide a link to a values like workshop exercise that I used whenever I was identifying mine. And I think when it comes to your home, it's just saying, I want my home to be welcoming. I want my home to be warm. Maybe some people don't want that. Maybe they want their home to be very clean and minimalist, and they want it to feel like a hotel, like a modern hotel. There's nothing wrong with that, because I think that's why we go to hotels too, is because we're looking for an escape. So it can be just as fun to go to someone's house that's cold and modern. It's still an experience. But for people who want that warm, collected feeling. I think that it's really about being curious about who you are and the world around you. I love reading. I love going to museums. And I feel like it also sounds trite to say like, oh, look for inspiration at museums. But I mean, that's kind of that's kind of where it starts, is you just start collecting images of things, whether it's you're saving them on your Pinterest or the Instagram save, or it could be just photos on your phone, and then just taking the time to go back through and edit those. That was one thing that actually got cut from the book. I'd wanted to talk about digital editing, like the idea of decluttering, not just our kitchen drawers, but also the photo apps on our phone. I probably spend as much time organizing ideas and thoughts digitally as I do actually in my home. Part of that's just because I'm also a creator and I'm always looking for content.
Yeah, no, that's super smart. We're either paper planners or digital or a hybrid mix. So that probably is a whole nother book about the media space, because I'm with you. I'm all inspired to get kind of knee deep and dirty in the editing of actual physical pieces, but I need to do that in my phone and computer too. So, yeah, super smart. My co-host, Carrie, has such a keen eye for decorating, and we were recently discussing how to incorporate the five senses into a space to make it feel alive and welcoming. When you're decorating, do you have a rule of thumb that you like to follow to bring a room together? I know you've discussed a few things in the book, but do you have a rule of thumb that you specifically follow?
Yeah, there are a couple things. I love the five senses. That's a great starting point for someone who is trying to think more analytically about how their space comes together. In the book, I talk about taking rooms apart. So if you're saving these photos on your phone or wherever, take some time to go back through the folder that you've saved and ask yourself, what do I like about this room? And one thing that I started doing that really helped me was, I call it old, new, borrowed, blue and green. But I just kind of needed a framework. I was like, oh, I love that room. Okay, why do I like it? Okay, well, what's old? And I would count the things that maybe looked antique. Okay, what's new? Okay, not much. Okay, what's borrowed? Like the idea of borrowed is, it might be something multicultural. It might be like a rug, an Oriental rug, a Turkish rug, a piece of French furniture. It might be a palm tree motif or a seashell. It's just something that probably might be borrowing from nature. A lot of designers talk about bringing the outdoors in. And then the final thing I focused on is, what is the color? Where's the blue and the green? Blue is such an interesting color because historically it didn't even exist until around the time of the Egyptians. And because it comes from cobalt. I mean, it existed in the sky and in the water, but it was when they discovered cobalt and figured out how they could use that as a pigment that we started to see it in history be used as like dyes and inks and things like that. And there's something about green too, whether it's a floral print on a fabric or a house plant. Like, we're drawn to those two very organic things. I feel like those two things also sort of balance out a space. I realized this when I was growing up. In our house, there were kind of four main rooms, and each one kind of had a color. That sounds dorky, but like one was red, one was blue, one was green, and one was yellow. In your head, you're probably thinking, oh my gosh, like that looks like a clown house. But it was all muted. Like, that's what unified it. It was this multicolored color scheme, but it was all the same muted, same tone. It really is getting analytical about it. And sometimes I make the right decision when it comes to picking a paint color, and sometimes I don't. We all have to make mistakes.
For sure. Well, you talk about organic too. You like the velvets and the metals, but there's some materials that you like to stay away from. Is that correct?
Yes, I'm not into like sequins and
well, or plastic, I think.
Yes, I'm not into plastic. No. And I heard a friend one time a couple of years ago say, like, I'm going to try to go anti-plastic this month. And I thought, well, good for you. And then I started sort of realizing that when I was trying to style a room for a photo, that was one of the first things I took out was plastic. Like the plastic utensils in the kitchens. I buy old wooden spoons that I find at estate sales, and we have some metal, all clad stainless steel, but no plastic. So just kind of as a general rule. And you can get like bamboo trays, drawer dividers and things like that. And we do have some clear plastic drawer dividers. I didn't anticipate that I would feel better about my decisions from an environmental standpoint. That's not why I said, oh, let's just take the plastic out of the picture. But it is interesting that, yeah, that's what we like about, so a photographer was over here one time and she said, why is your kitchen so photographable? And I said, there's no plastic in it. And she was like, oh my gosh, there's not.
That really would make a huge difference. I can see that. Okay, now I'm going to have to go edit my house of plastic. Yes, I can. Sure. Well, Whitney, what would your top takeaways for readers to be from your book?
My favorite chapter of the book is the last chapter where I talked about this dinner party that I threw for a friend because it was fun to write about. It was really every bit as magical a night as I tried to express in the book. So I loved writing about it. And it also just sort of signified, this is what I want. I mean, I want great conversation. I want people to know that they matter. And my house is a tool that's helping me do that. So I think that's probably the primary takeaway is you bought a book about organizing and decorating, but it's really a book about people and relationships and how we treat them.
That's a gem. Yes, the stories were just beautiful for sure.
Thanks.
Well, just a few personal questions about loving your garden. What is new in your garden right now?
Yesterday, I planted beans and carrots and cucumber, a ton of stuff. I'm in the throes of like trying to get all the seeds in the ground. I'm going to end up going and buying some tomato plants because my tomatoes didn't start this year. Like I don't have enough tomatoes. I gotta have more tomatoes. The roses have just finished blooming and need to be pruned. I have David Austin roses and most of them bloom almost year round. We have one rose that blooms February. It's an iceberg rose. It blooms February through November.
Oh, that's fantastic. Oh, I would love to see your garden because it sounds very inviting and warm. And then you talked about having a couple coffees in one of your chapter. What is your coffee order, or how do you take your coffee?
First thing every day, I just need a little bit of cream in there. The sweet cream. We buy our creamer from Aldi. If I could take out stock in creamer, I would. My children think that like they need to put a little coffee in their creamer. Don't ask me to write a book about children's nutrition. I like oat milk. I like almond milk. I can't drink it black. I used to be able to, but it bothers my stomach.
Hey, I am with you with that. And then lastly, here at Redesigning Health and Home, we always talk kind of about what we're redesigning. So I am really inspired to redesign my organizing.
Mm-hmm.
And from this book, I hope, again, everybody runs out and gets it. But what are you redesigning this week?
I love that term, and I love how you just explained that. In the writing world, people say writing is rewriting, and you could almost say designing is redesigning. You're going to get it to a certain spot, and then you're going to be like, okay, what's not working? That's what a really good design is something that's both functional and beautiful. So right now, I am trying to work on designing our summer. My kids are out of school next week. You'll only have 8 weeks, and they're like the longest and the shortest 8 weeks. And, what are we going to do? How are we going to stay off screens? What are we going to do when it gets really hot? So I'm just trying to figure out what that's going to look like.
Well, that's perfect because from reading your stories about your family, I think your kids' summer is just going to be fantastic if you it. So I feel confident that they will have a great summer. So it's nice that you're thinking about that. Well, Whitney, it's been an absolute joy to hear your insights on organizing, decorating, and creating a life that's both beautiful and functional. Organize first, decorate second will inspire so many of us to live intentionally. Before we wrap up, I'd love to hear just one more piece of advice you'd love to give our listeners who would like to start their own journey on getting more organized and having a beautifully decorated home. What would one piece of advice right now to wrap this up be?
I would just say, like, make sure that you have a table beside you to put your drink on. Like, a good table. Like, start there. You know, we're both sitting right now as we record this. And if I reach my hand out, there could be a cup of coffee or a glass of wine or something right there if there was a table. And there is kind of a table around the corner from the arm of the sofa. But I think that's where it starts, is you put yourself in different seats in your house and you reach out and you say, okay, what do I need? And it starts with, where am I going to put my cup? Where am I going to set my cup?
That's perfection. I love it. I love it. I'm going to go do that. I'm going to go sit in every chair of my house. I have the perfect setup because you have taken my hand through Audible and through your actual book and just inspired me, and just with such grace and kindness, because I can be a little bit of a give a mouse a cookie situation.
Oh, yeah, same.
Yeah. And I just kept hearing you say, that's okay. Just do what you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
It's fine. And then you'll do some as long as you're getting something done. So thank you so much. This has been a pleasure and an honor to have you on.
Thank you.
And we will make sure all of our listeners check out your book. And thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it so much.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Thank you for joining this lively chat with Whitney English. Whitney can be found at her website, whitneyenglish.com. And please make sure to grab her new book, Organize First, Decorate Second, wherever books are sold, or of course on Audible. You can also find Whitney on all her social channels, Pinterest, YouTube, and Etsy at her handle, @Whitney And don't forget to check out all of her favorite finds at her Amazon store, also again at her handle, Whitney English. Thanks so much for listening. We really hope you enjoyed this episode.